television screens or computer screens and reflections, and sometimes just like pixels and fuzz and CG and like all of like, because there is some early CG elements in here that are interspersed in a sort of interesting way. It is something that really keeps you investigating that frame and being like, is that a smear? Am I seeing a smear, or is that a face of someone who is, creeping in this room with us? And it does start to create this kind of, it was very dread-inducing. I saw someone use the word paralyzing, and I like that description of the sort of like chilling nightmare reality you feel like you're with these characters, even though it is, again, lots of images of like mundane apartment complexes, or like people hanging on top of a building where there's like kind of a cityscape behind them, and it is meant to kind of dwarf the characters and create this idea of sort of like alienated modern living and these structures that we've built and all of these kinds of things. But just combining that with where people go to escape that, where they they think that they're safe just like watching the news on TV. And there's something just freaky about the use of like grain and blur and the desaturated look of the whole thing. This whole movie is like faded grays and browns. There's like no life in it at all. You feel like you're just in a walking nightmare. The pixelated inky shadows of the whole thing, the ambient hum that just constantly feels like it's going off. Like it does feel like at any moment you are going to witness something horrible, or a ghost is going to pop out of a shadow and fucking attack you or convince you to kill yourself, or, it's just, he really teaches you to kind of watch it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's one part, I think this is one of my favorite ghost sequences that I've seen. And this is kind of what I was talking about when I was talking about the examples in Retribution.
Is this the big forbidden room one when Taguchi?
Yeah, I think. Oh, is it Taguchi? I thought it was Yabi for some reason. Or maybe
maybe it's Yabi. Yeah,
I thought it was Yabi, but regardless, it's one of the guys. I believe it's, ironically, I think it's one of the guys that says when he hears about.
Yeah, no, Taguchi kills himself, so it's not Taguchi. Right. Yabi, you're right. It's Yabi.
Okay. Because after Taguchi kills himself, he's the one that says like, well, I could maybe understand that sadness or something like that. He's one of the only ones. That's
a telling line too. Yeah. Like he said, he really suddenly honest. Just wanted to die. I get like that sometimes. Like it's, and she's like, well, something, you weren't there. You didn't see the black stain on the wall. You didn't see the, the weirdness of finding him that way. And, and I think it's the scene you're talking about is when Yabe finally starts to investigate it, because they do go kind of like, yeah, it was kind of weird that, like when they open up one of his discs that he had at home, and it's just a picture of him standing in his room in one of those like endless recursive photos where his computer screen is like the picture, and then the computer screen in the picture is like the next picture, what I'm talking about, where it just keeps going and going and going like that. And they zoom into the reflection and they find the face on the computer monitor, right? And they're just like, okay,
that is disconnected from everything else. So it's just like, what the hell is that? And then Yabi, he goes and he investigates. And what's cool too, we were talking about the scene where he goes, the one girl goes on the bus to investigate Yaguchi, and she has that kind of bus shot where it looks like she's almost in space or some kind of out of world place in some way, shape, or form, like she's going to a different realm or something. They have the exact same shot with him. And then they even have the same shots where he's like going up the stairs and all of that. But he eventually sees this girl on downstairs when he is doing some investigating. And
because he goes into specifically, right, the Forbidden Room, which I fucking love that name. That's just so creepy to me that he would go back to Taguchi's house and he would hear that disembodied voice being like, help me. Yeah. And that scare too, when he sees the black stain and then he's like, well, fuck that, turns the light off and leaves the room. But this is indicative of Kurosawa's whole thing, is he's just like, that was kind of compelling though. Like maybe I need to go back and see what the fuck that was. And he goes back and turns the light back on, and all of a sudden Taguchi is standing there in the room. He's still a presence there. Yeah. And that scare is very classic and cool. But I think it's in Taguchi's notes or whatever, he finds this paperwork about the Forbidden Room, which of course, like every great horror movie character, he's just like, well, what's in there?
I gotta go inside.
What could be in there? I mean, it's sealed with red tape. Clearly someone wants me to go in here.
Yeah, what could have led my friend to his ultimate demise? I have to find out myself.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and
also,
that's where it has that Ringu aspect too, where it does feel like it's spreading. That
yes.
We get a little bit more and more each time of what the experience is. And we first see it by the people committing suicide. Then we get the experience of what it actually is in the Forbidden Room as the next step. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and there is something that sets it apart where they are left with this kind of like almost black mold that they leave wherever they die. It does seem very much like something has taken them or they've melted away or something like that. And I also like when he approaches
It's a really
him,
sad image because it does make you feel that like they're still there in some way. They've left their mark in some way, but like, they have disappeared.
Physically was when they passed on, and it's just like sitting there, and it instead of something that's more like a memorial or something like that, it's just this black mold that's growing on the wall, and it's just it's very terrifying thought.
Yeah, Kurosawa described it as like the terror of like, because of someone like being depressed, it's like you're dying before you're dead. And he said that he really wanted to capture that in like these characters feel like they're being deleted is kind of what he felt like, where it was like their bodies are gone. They're these stains on these walls. And then sometimes those stains will just get like blown away in the wind. Like they just were never there kind of deal.
Which does have kind of a great scene later on. When I do like when he comes up, when it shows him.